The words hit like ice water in my veins. "So, Harper," my grandmother Eleanor said, setting down her fork with deliberate precision, "did the 18,000 I sent help your fashion line?" The dining room air seemed to thicken, pressing against my eardrums until every sound became unnaturally sharp. The tick of the wall clock, my mother's sharp intake of breath, the soft clink of Layla's phone hitting her plate. The roasted chicken smell that had felt warm and inviting moments before now made my stomach lurch. 18,000. The number echoed in my head like a gong. I stared at the graduation card propped against the centerpiece, the one my parents had handed me with such ceremony 2 hours ago, inside 2 $20 bills. "From Grandma Eleanor," they'd said, beaming for the camera. "My name is Harper. I'm 23, and I'm a fashion designer. This is the story of how I discovered my family had been stealing my future." For the past year, I'd been invisible in my own house, not the dramatic kind of invisible that gets attention, but the quiet kind that lets you disappear while standing in the same room. My younger sister Layla sparkled under every light. Designer clothes appeared in her closet, new phones materialized in her hands, weekend spa trips with Mom became routine. Meanwhile, I wore the same 5 outfits to my job at Bradley's fabric shop. I saved every dollar I could scrape together and sketched dress designs by the light of my phone to save on electricity. "We provide for both our daughters equally," my father had always said when I asked about the disparities. "Different needs, different approaches." I'd believed him. I'd wanted to believe him. But now, watching my mother's face drain of color, watching my father's eyes dart between Eleanor and his plate, watching Layla clutch the designer purse she'd somehow afforded on her part-time bookstore salary, those months of quiet questions crystallized into one devastating certainty. They'd been stealing from me. "I only received $40, I said, my voice steadier than my hands. "In a graduation card." Eleanor's expression hardened like cooling steel. She'd driven 4 hours from Kansas City to celebrate my college graduation, bringing stories about her design studio and promises to help launch my career. She'd talked about mentorship, about connections, about believing in my talent when no one else seemed to notice it existed. When I'd called her last week to thank her for whatever graduation gift she'd sent, her surprised response about the business startup fund had planted the first seed of suspicion. The silence stretched until my mother's whisper cracked it open. We used some of it for family expenses." Family expenses. Eleanor's tone could have frosted the windows. "Like the diamond bracelet you're wearing? The one that wasn't on your wrist when I arrived?" My mother's hand instinctively covered her jewelry. "Things have been tight." "Not $18,000 tight." Eleanor turned to my father. "Marcus, I wrote 12 separate checks over the past year. Every letter explicitly stated the money was for Harper's fashion line startup costs, every single one." The math hit me like a physical blow. 12 checks, $18,000. While I'd been rationing ramen noodles and walking 40 minutes to work to save bus fare, they'd been living off my grandmother's generosity. "We were protecting her," my father said, his voice gaining false confidence. "She's young, inexperienced with money. We invested it in the family's stability so she'd have a secure foundation." "You invested it in spa treatments and designer handbags." Eleanor's words cut through his explanation like scissors through cheap fabric. "Harper, show me your fashion sketches." I hesitated, aware that pulling out my sketchbook would shatter whatever was left of my family's carefully constructed facade. But Eleanor's eyes held something I hadn't seen from my parents in years, genuine interest in what I had to say. I excused myself and walked to the front closet, retrieving my portfolio from where I'd hidden it behind winter coats. 3 sketchbooks held together with rubber bands, filled with designs I'd created during break room lunch hours and sleepless nights. Eleanor flipped through them slowly, her expression softening with each page. "These are exceptional," she said finally. "Professional quality. How did you develop this technical skill without formal training?" "YouTube videos, library books. I practiced on fabric scraps from work." The words felt strange to speak aloud. I'd never described my process to anyone who listened with genuine attention. "And your parents never mentioned your talent?" The question hung in the air like an accusation. My mother shifted in her chair. We've always been supportive. By hiding her abilities under a bushel while stealing the money meant to develop them? Eleanor closed the sketchbook with finality. I've seen enough. She stood, her presence somehow filling the room despite her small stature. Marcus, Patricia, you violated my trust and stolen from your daughter's future. Consider my financial support permanently terminated. Mom, please, my father started. Furthermore, Harper, you're coming to work with me. My studio apartment in Kansas City is vacant. The position includes housing, mentorship, and a starting salary that will give you actual independence. The offer hit me like sunlight, breaking through storm clouds. Real mentorship, a salary, freedom from the house where I'd learned to make myself small enough to disappear. I don't understand, Layla spoke for the first time, her voice small and confused. The money was for family support. No, sweetheart, Eleanor said gently. The money was specifically for your sister's fashion career. Every check, every letter, every conversation we had about it was crystal clear. Your parents chose to lie to both of us. I looked around the table at faces I'd trusted my entire life. My mother clutching her diamond bracelet like it might disappear. My father staring at his hands. Layla, finally understanding why her lifestyle had never matched our family's supposed financial struggles. I need time to pack, I said. It took 3 days to dismantle a lifetime of making myself smaller. I packed my sketches, my sewing supplies, my 5 decent outfits. Everything else stayed behind. The hand-me-downs, the practical gifts, the evidence of being an afterthought. On the morning I left, my parents made one last desperate attempt at damage control. We can fix this, my mother pleaded, tears streaming. We'll pay you back. We'll make this right. With what money? I asked. The spa memberships? The jewelry? The designer clothes in Layla's closet? My father tried a different approach. Family means forgiveness, Harper. We made mistakes, but we're still your parents. I stood in the doorway, suitcase in hand, looking at these people who'd spent months teaching me that love was conditional and fairness was negotiable. You're right, I said. Family does mean forgiveness, but it also means honesty, support, and not stealing from each other. You chose which values mattered most. 3 days later, Eleanor drove me to Kansas City, where I discovered the apartment was small but filled with natural light. My first morning there, I spread my sketches across the kitchen table and began planning my first professional collection. Eleanor's studio hummed with the sounds of success: sewing machines, fabric cutters, phone calls about orders and deadlines. For the first time in my life, I was surrounded by people who saw my potential instead of my convenience. After settling into my new routine, 3 months later, my first original design sold to a boutique in Chicago. The check had my name on it, just my name, earned through my work, my vision, my effort. I deposited it into an account only I could access and felt something I'd never experienced before: financial security that belonged entirely to me. My phone buzzed occasionally with messages from home, apologies, explanations, requests for help with bills now that Eleanor's support was gone. The financial consequences hit my parents immediately. Within weeks, my mother had to return several recent purchases, and my father took on extra consulting work to cover the mortgage. I read their messages, processed the familiar manipulation, and deleted each one without responding. Boundaries aren't walls. They're the place you stand when you finally decide what your life is worth. Now, 6 months after starting my new life, I received a text from Layla. I get it now. I'm sorry. I've been saving money to pay for my own things instead of letting them buy everything for me. It was the first genuine apology I'd received from anyone in my family, accompanied by real behavior change. I responded with a simple period, "Thank you," and meant it. We started exchanging texts occasionally, not the close relationship we might have had, but an honest connection between two people learning to navigate family dysfunction. Meanwhile, my parents' marriage became another casualty of their choices. Without Eleanor's financial support and with their deception exposed, they separated 3 months after I left, with divorce proceedings finalized just before Christmas. Sometimes people ask if I miss my family. The honest answer is complicated. I miss the idea of them. the parents who might have celebrated my achievements, the sister who might have been proud of my success, but I don't miss the reality of shrinking myself to fit their version of family love. Eleanor taught me that the right people don't require you to dim your light to make them comfortable. In her studio, surrounded by fabric and possibility, I learned what it feels like to be seen not as a convenience or afterthought, but as someone with value worth investing in. If you're reading this and recognizing your own story in mine, know that you deserve better than scraps from your own table. Your dreams aren't too big, your needs aren't too much, and your worth isn't determined by how quietly you can exist in spaces where you should be celebrated. Trust your instincts, document everything, and when the right opportunity comes, the one that lets you step into your actual value, take it with both hands and don't look back. Before you go, here's a quick bonus for sticking around. If you love learning and growing like I do, you need to try audiobooks. I've got an exclusive deal with Audible. Your first month is completely free. That's access to over 500,000 titles, zero cost to you. All the details are waiting in the description. Don't miss this one.